Hey guys, it's Sunil here. Welcome to another one. Today we're going to change pace a little bit and go forward in time. In today's video, we're taking a look at my favorite diesel locomotive, the DDA40X. And we're taking a look at 6936, my favorite diesel locomotive that still runs. So, let's take a look at it. Okay, so we're going to talk about the real DDA40Xs. So, the DDA40X was a class of 47 Centennial class locomotives built by EMD from 1969 to 1971. The first DD40 was 6900, and the last one was 6946. And interesting fact, 6946 was the last one to be retired. Anyways, continuing on with the history, the DDA40Xs were a more evolved version of their predecessor, the DDA35, or the DD35 or the DD35A, however you want to pronounce it. Either way, this is a more evolved version of that. So the DD35 basically looked very similar to this. Well, not by much, but essentially they had a standard cab. They had 5,000 horsepower. They also rode on a pair of 4-axle trucks, and they were just a little bit shorter than this. Yeah, so those are the DD35s. The DD40s introduced the wide cab, the 4-axle trucks again. They went back to that design. Two 645 prime movers. Integrated electronics. Much more evolved electronics, kicking off EMD's Dash 2 line. And some warning features that they used on two experimental engines. 6924, I believe, was one of those with the air raid siren, and of course the beacons on top. So yeah, the DD40s, as delivered, they could produce 7,000 horsepower, but were downgraded to 6,600 to save wear and tear on the engines. So still, to this day, this still holds the highest horsepower for any diesel locomotive, and still has the title for the largest and most powerful diesel locomotive ever built. And only one of these run today, and that is the one we're looking at right now. The DD40s were initially supposed to be retired in the 70s, but were then given a second chance at life and ran all the way up until the 1980s to help with high freight traffic in the 80s. The DD40s were retired officially in 1982, and the last DD40 to operate was, of course, 6936 pulling a freight train. 6936 was never retired and still ran under the Union Pacific under their heritage fleet, all the way up from the 1980s all the way up to 2017. 6936 has ran multiple excursions with the steam engines, 3985 and 844. Unfortunately, has not ran with the big boy because it does not have PTC. So 6936 did its last run in 2017, and has been sitting in the Cheyenne Roundhouse and was started up once a year for demonstration and to make sure that the locomotive still can operate. And it still can to this day. It's still capable of running. The locomotive has been sitting in the Roundhouse for 5 years so far, and with that, the locomotive has just been sitting there and hasn't done anything. However, there is hope. The DD40 has been donated to the organization that runs Milwaukee Road 261. I forget what the organization's name is, but they donated the DD40, and now the locomotive will be running under its own power once again with 3985, 261, 5511, and I think a Milwaukee Road F or E unit. But anyways, that's going to be nice. So the DD40 is now retired from the Union Pacific, but it's not retired from service, which is a good thing. So that's good to know. So the DD40 still lives on. There is no ending the big diesel, aka the big boy diesel. Okay, so as we already know, this is an Athearn Genesis model, as we say for the title. And as we already know, is because it's an Athearn Genesis, it does not have a flywheel through the center where the walkway is, and there is no open gap where the coupler is, because the coupler is not connected to the truck like the Bachmann. Now the Bachmann model, it was connected to the truck, and the Bachmann model actually wasn't too bad. However, it was nowhere near as detailed or as good a quality as this engine. So the Athearn model is by far the best one on the market. So yes. Anyways, we're gonna take a look at this. It's a really nice engine. It's very detailed. It's very heavy, which I'm actually still trying to remember how heavy the Bachmann one was, because this is very heavy. Surprisingly, it weighs as much as maybe a steam engine without its tender connected. Maybe about as much as a Athearn Challenger without the tender. But anyways, let's take a look. So this locomotive, on the front, you have your coupler, which I've put in long shank KD for it to go around my curves. You have an air hose, you have MU cables, you have ditch lights, you have an MU receptacle right here, you have the yellow sill running over the front, you have nicely done handrails, which are, they're okay. They're not too durable, but they're not too fragile. It's kind of right in the middle. Of course, still be delicate with them because they can be broken off. Or pop out of their socket and they don't want to go back in. That's happened to me before with this engine so far, because I've had this engine apart, of course, to put lock sound into it. By the way, this is the DCC ready version. I put lock sound into it, so just a heads up, that's what this is. We do not do Tsunami 2 too often around here. Yeah, ditch lights, MU receptacle, coupler cut bar, handrails, walkway, safety ladders, or step ladders. You have a herald here, which is a warning placard. The UP wings, 6936 did not originally have these. None of the DD40s did. 6936 is the only one that does, and that is because I believe in early 2000 it hit a dump truck in St. Louis. Well, I know it hit a dump truck, but I believe that's the year it did hit. It was in early 2000. Anyways, it hit a dump truck, and essentially it was in a really bad shape. The nose was pretty much destroyed, like right here. The locomotive itself was pretty much fine, but the nose was destroyed, and it killed one of the crew members in the cab. So a shop ended up rebuilding the nose of the engine, and with some extra cushioning, so that way the locomotive can survive another crash if it did ever get into one. So it got a safety upgrade essentially, which is essentially what the DD40s had over the predecessor. So when it got rebuilt, it gained those wings and it got repainted into the lightning bolt scheme, which is the scheme it's in now. The older DD40s, the DD40s that you will see running around, well, displayed or sitting on display tracks, they are not in the lightning bolt scheme. 6936 is the only one in the lightning bolt scheme. But anyways, continuing on, we have separately applied grab irons on the nose, separately applied handrails, we have sand filler hatches on the nose, we have grab irons on the nose, and a green hood, of course, because UP heritage. Moving around the side, we have a nice look at the cab. As we probably already can see, this has a very similar cab to the GP60Ms and the FP45s and the SDP40Fs. So these are pretty similar to those engines. So if we zoom in and wait for my phone to shut up, we can take a look at the side of the cab and what the stuff on the side says. Of course, we have the yellow sill down here, which looks better than the red sill in my opinion on some engines. On the DD40 I really like the yellow sill, but the yellow sill looks better in my opinion. I like the red too, but I like the red on the Jeeps and the F units and the turbines, of course, but on hood units like this and the SD40s, I like the yellow. It looks so much better. We have 6936. We have the UP website, because this is a special interest unit, more than a heritage unit, really. DD40X, which is EMD's nomenclature for this engine. But of course, people have many different ways of pronouncing these engines. The UP shield, right there, just says Union Pacific. We have a warning label right here. We have the latches detailing for the battery boxes and all that other stuff. We have a armrest here, which is very fragile. We have the cab windows, which of course do not open, but that is okay because I don't want them to open. Sunshades. Yeah, pretty nice. Pretty nicely done. Taking a look at the trucks, if we zoom out, we notice that 6936 has the rotating bearing caps on the trucks. The roller bearings don't actually rotate on the model, but if they did, these would actually spin, and they spin on the real thing, of course, because that's how it works. But on the model, they do not rotate. If they did rotate, this engine probably would have costed a bit more, and also it would have looked much cooler. But anyways, moving alongside, we have the blower bulge, which looks very nice. It's very nice looking. We have the steps and ladder, more a ladder than a type of step. Safety treading on the side. We have really nicely done handrails. We have a fuel hatch right here. Some piping coming off of it. We have an etched metal walkway, Union Pacific, or at least the Union part of Union Pacific on the side right here. Nicely done vents right here. They aren't see-through, which is unfortunate for how much this engine cost. So that's very disappointing that they're not see-through, considering that this engine with the Tsunami 2 decoder costs $510 from your local train stop. But that's okay, not a big deal. But I did expect that. Hood doors are really nicely done. The model's very nicely done, but there are some things I wish could be a little bit better. But other than that, I don't really know how much you could get much better than this unless you are scale trains. I mean, I know some things scale trains would do to make this thing even better, but I don't know if scale trains would do this anytime soon. Etched metal walkways right here, really nicely done. We have fuel filler hatches. We have fuel gauge detailing right here. We have another fuel filler hatch right there. Another one right here. We see the start of Pacific. Going back to here, you can see the walkway is see-through. You can see my keyboard in the background as I move the engine along. More hood doors, because this engine is 98 feet long, so it's a really big engine. The sand tanks, which are really nicely done. They actually have the hatch on top of them, and it's very nicely done. Very good looking. You have Union Pacific shield right here, and I believe that this is a watertight glass. It's a little bit big. I feel like those should be a bit smaller, but that's okay. The truck, really nicely done. We can see sanding lines. There are sanding lines on the front as well. I forgot to point that out, but sanding lines here, and sanding lines here, and of course underneath the sill there are traction motor cables and sanding lines everywhere. So again, very nicely done. And yeah, so we're gonna flip the locomotive around and take a look at the engineer side of the cab. Alright, so taking a look at the engineer side, of course, nicely done. Same as the other side, pretty much on the cab. So we're going to continue on this way. Oh wait, one thing that's different from the engineer side versus the conductor side is that there's a bell. The bell is right here. Truck, again, very nicely done. Union Pacific, very nicely done, of course. Pretty much the same thing on this side versus the other side, except there's only one fuel filler hatch on this side. And of course, the fuel gauge and some other details there. Nicely done sand tank. The blower bulge on this side is really nicely done. But yeah, that's that. Going to the back of the diesel, we can look at the back of the locomotive. We have, of course, our long chain coupler, again, to get around curves. We have a air hose right there. Air hose there. We have MU cables. We have spare knuckles, MU receptacle there. Separately applied ladders, really nicely done handrails. UP6936 over the top. Operational markers, operational backup light. Yellow sill, of course. Really nicely done. So that's that. Okay, so we've gone free cam for a minute. I'm going to take a look at the nose with some light on it. Nose is very nicely done. The cab windows have the my brain. Jeez. There we go. We have the windshield wipers, which are separately applied. And the operational number boards and marker lights. The beacon, of course, does work. The cab roof heater box and the popsicle style antenna. And that's really nice. Those windshield wipers look really good. There is a full cab interior inside of this. The cab does not light, but that is okay. The cab interior does look really nice, though. With the little bit of light you can get into there. I may light it in the future, but I may not, but I'm not sure. You can see inside of the cab. Very nicely done. You can see the control stand, the seats, and all of that. So anyways, if we zoom out, we have the inertial filter hatch. Again, the grills are not see-through, which is a little disappointing. Oh, I think some paint. I'm not sure. We have the exhaust right here. We have the fans grills, and there's actually fans in there, which looks really, really nice. Oh, never mind. I just wiped off. Okay, that's good. Anyways, the horn, the lift rings, a horn conduit, more fans, dynamic brake fans, radiator fans, 2 dynamic brakes on this locomotive, since this locomotive has, of course, 2 prime movers and 8 traction motors. Again, lift rings are nicely done, fans are really nicely done, and so are the filter hatches. So, yeah. Now, you gotta be careful with this. Take a look at the underside. You can start to see a little bit of that traction motor detailing I was talking about. It looks really, really good. This is the first diesel locomotive I've bought in years. I have a couple more that I bought, but before those arrived, this is the first one that I bought in a very long time. I went on a whole steam hunt, essentially. I just ditched the diesel world pretty much and went to steam, and as you should, because steam is cooler. But this is also very cool. Again, if you're going to get diesel, you got to get the unique ones. That's what makes them interesting. You get the boring Gevos and stuff like that, you don't have as much fun. This is fun. This is big, and this is cool. You got to have it unique, you know. If you don't have it unique, it just looks boring. Now this is nice. So anyways, also, something I just realized. Behind those little, like, things, there's steps, which is nice. And also, the DD40 is one of the few diesels to actually have a operating conductor side door. The door on the real thing actually works. This is one of the few diesels that actually has a working conductor's door. So that's cool. It's the same thing on the engineer side. There's actually little steps there. Probably can't see it very well from this angle, but they're there. And yeah, so hope you liked it. Really nice engine. So yeah, let's run it. Now again, I've put Loxon 5 into this engine. There is not Tsunami 2. Tsunami 2 is okay, but I'm not too big a fan of Tsunami 2, so I put Loxon into it. So yeah, let's take a look at this engine run. Okay, so we are here finally with the DD40. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at it in operation. So before I do that, there's a nice pan of it and some natural lighting. Okay, and here's a couple to a repeater passenger car. The DD40 is a little bit brighter, I think. I'm not too sure. There's the big boy next to it. You obviously can tell the big boy is obviously bigger. But the DD40, compared to the big boy itself, without the tender, is just a little bit longer. But in real life, the DD40 would only be 5 feet longer, because the big boy, without its tender connected, is 85 feet. still the largest steam engine ever built. I know some people will make the claim about the S1, but that's only with the S1 with its tender. Without the tender, the big boy is still larger. So, there's that. But yeah. So anyways, here's the DD40, and we're going to take a look at it. Now, I got the DCC ready version. If my phone would shut up, because I don't know what the hell. That's just annoying. But anyways, I got the... I'm going to put this on mute. Okay. I got the DCC ready version of this locomotive. And the reason I did that is because I like Tsunami 2 for certain things. The DD40 was not one of them. So I decided to get the DCC ready version and put lock sound into it. Tsunami 2 I really only like for Santa Fe steam engines, Southern Pacific steam engines, except for the GS4 and cab forward, and the SC70 ACE. Everything else I really like to put lock sound into. So yeah, we're gonna take a look at this, and I'm gonna turn the engine on with F8, of course, with lock sound. Lighting's kind of messing with the camera now. I think that's okay. Okay, so now that we have the engine started, we're going to take a look at the lights. So F0, or at least for me, turns the headlight on, obviously. Well, that's universal, but yeah. So F0 turns the headlight on. F5 is the ditch lights. Those look pretty good. And F6 turns on, for me, and how I program my engine at least, turns on the number boards, the marker lights, and the strobe. And it does turn on the rear strobe lights, of course, on the rear. Looks like one of them's a little bit brighter, but that could also just be the camera being distorted a little bit, because it doesn't look like that in person. Because in person they look pretty equal. But that's okay. Nothing really too noticeable. Anyways, listen to the horn. Here's the bell. And here's a cross sequence with the bell and the horn combined. So yeah, that's that. Alright, we're going to take a listen to the notching on the locomotive. So with drive hold enabled, the locomotive won't move. So let's take a listen to the notching. Oh wait, I have it in brake. There we go. notice they have to ditch lights don't flash, because they don't flash in Union Pacific engines unless they're Southern Pacific-9. Those Southern Pacific locomotives have flashing ditch lights. But yeah, that's that. Yeah, that's the sounds, or at least, yeah, all the major ones really. There's that one. That's a standard lock sound crew chatter. Nothing special. So yeah, that's that. Nothing special. Okay, now that we've taken a look at all the basic stuff and some of the sounds, I'm gonna take a look at this thing running with my miniature UP consist, because UP cars are expensive, so I have 3 cars. So yeah, hope you enjoy it. Row 17 lighting's enabled too. Okay, so you saw it run, you saw it sound, you saw all the lights and stuff. Really good. I would give this model a solid 8 out of 10. Actually, no, I would give it a 9 out of 10. This locomotive is very nice. It's a really good puller. It's pretty quick. It does very well out of the box. It's not perfect though, but it is pretty nice. So yeah, let me give you my final rundown of it. So pulling power, good. Speed, good. Durability, pretty decent. Charm, excellent. Diversity, really good. I give that an 8 out of 10. Um, this locomotive is what I would call is if you're a really big fan of EMD or if you're a really big fan of the Union Pacific. For me, I check both those boxes, so I have to have this. This is my favorite diesel locomotive of all time. The reason I say diesel is because the gas turbine doesn't really count. That's a turbine, not really a diesel, but close enough. This is my favorite diesel locomotive. Is it perfect? No, and that's what we're going to get into next. If you're buying one of the in-service versions, like the ones that don't have the ditch lights, those are perfect. I honestly would never take those ones apart if I bought one of the in-service versions. But if you're buying 6936 like you're most likely going to, it looks fantastic out of the box. However, the ditch lights are terrible. I'm sorry to say it, but they have like little light piping that inserts into the ditch light, and then it goes like to the center and pushes into like a little PCB board with lights on them. I like the concept of that. That's cool. However, it doesn't really work because it looks good when you're looking at it from the front, but when you turn to the side, it looks terrible. I'm sorry to say it, but that's the truth. But yeah, and I put just 402 size surface mounts in the ditch lights, and they look really good now. But beforehand, they didn't look very great. What else is there? Put lock sound into it, Tsunami 2, or lock sound, whatever you prefer, really. I just prefer lock sound because it's universal for me. That and most of my engines use lock sound, so I guess that makes life a little bit easier. But I don't know. That's just me. That's just a personal preference. But it really doesn't matter. All the other lights look good. The headlight looks good. It's on dim right now because I have Rule 17 lighting. But if I move the ring light away, you see the lights, they look a lot better. But if I crack the throttle on it, it brightens up. And that's how Rule 17 lighting works. Brightens when you move. Colors is really good. I like the color on this. It's really nice. It has that really good UP yellow. I do wish that the yellow sill was reflective, but who really cares? It looks good either way. Put the ring light back over here some more. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's see, what else is good about this? Really good puller. I pulled 40 something cars in my train club last weekend, so that's pretty good. It's pretty quick. Hit a scale in 80 miles an hour, which is pretty good. These things had a top speed of 90 miles an hour, and they probably didn't do more than like 75 or 80 in service. Especially running over Cajon, where the track speed out of Barstow to Victorville is around 79 miles an hour. So, yeah, these things would be doing about 80 miles an hour in service, so pretty good. Detail, really nice. I love the undersill detail. This is the first new locomotive I've bought in a really long time. I bought this brand new from Spring Creek. Really good. I paid $371 for this. Pretty good because again I bought the DCC ready version. So yeah. Details are good, like I said. Very fragile, of course, on the handrails. I do wish that the grills were see-through, but honestly, not really that big a deal because honestly, on the real thing, honestly, you can't really notice it too much anyway. They did a good job on how the grills look, but they aren't see-through. So that's about it. In terms of tracking, really good. Doesn't have as much play as the Bachmann in the trucks because the wheels don't go side to side like how the Bachmann does. The Bachmann trucks, they have wipers on the inside of the rail. I'm sorry, not on the inside of the rail, but on the inside of the truck to pick up power. how on the Athearn the side frames have the pickups and like the little bearings sit in there to pick up the power. So that's how that works. Let's see, what else is there? Like I said, they don't have a lot of side-to-side play. Minimum radius of 22 inches. I'm not joking with that. That's what this locomotive was running on, and that's what those cars were running on. That's the absolute minimum you can run this thing at comfortably. Again, going back to the couplers, this comes stock with McHenry short shanks. I put KD long shanks on here. KD's because I'm not playing around with my couplers breaking, and long shanks because just so I can pull a train on my layout. I mean, let's see. Here's a blue box bay window caboose. This will go around here with the engine attached, and that's just barely. I mean, if I put a regular boxcar behind this thing, it'll end up pulling the boxcar right off the rails because this thing is gigantic. I mean, this thing is 98 scale feet long. I mean, that's pretty good. It's pretty long. And then with long shank couplers, that makes it even longer. Long shanks to help it get around curves while pulling a train. That's the reason I have long shanks on both ends. And also to, not pull my other units off the track, because I have 1943 and I have 3593, the SD40-2 that would be running with this. Until I can get another DD40, or until I can get a speed match to run with my 844 and 3985, and possibly my big boy. But yeah. So, in total, I would give this model a 9 out of 10. Pretty good. Really worth your money. I would buy another one of these, like I said, and because of how happy I was with this one, considering that I know with the other versions I won't have to mess with the ditch lights or anything at all other than putting lock sound into it, I'm pretty satisfied with this. Other than having to put lock sound into it, this does use sugar cubes. I don't like that they went to the sugar cubes on this, personally. I don't really like sugar cubes, but that's just what you have to do now, I guess. But yeah. Yeah, personally, I would buy another one of these, and then knowing I won't have to mess with any other lights on the other versions, yeah, I would 100% buy one of these. So I would give this a green star, or a green signal, or whatever you want to call it. I would give this a pass. This engine is hands down the best diesel that I have ever purchased. No questions about that. This is the best diesel I've ever purchased. It's my favorite. That's probably why it's the best one I've ever purchased. So, yeah, I would buy one of these. Go ahead. That's all. Signing out. Peace. Also, I know my table is a mess right now, but we are overdue on reviews. The twins are together again. We're the best friends, really. My camera lighting sucks right at the moment, but let's see if I can turn my ring light over. Yeah, that doesn't really help, but 4449's back. That's an MTH. And then there's the SD40. I don't know if I'll do a review on the SD40 and 1943, because videos have already been done for those. But I might do a more in-depth one because the other video is not the greatest. So, we'll see. Get that old Sentinel charm to it. But, we have a blue Y6B. So probably the first in-depth review of that, so we'll see how that goes. So, yeah. And also, a comparison between two big boys. Can't really see the other one, but that's an MTH big boy. But, yeah, so more videos coming soon.